Hi, I'm Stuart Ryan. In this video, I'm going to show you the all-important A major chord and various ways you can play it on the fretboard. This one is so common. It's the first chord in All Right Now by Free. It's the first chord in Highway to Hell by AC/DC. But it's also in tracks like Adele's Someone Like You and Snow Patrol's Chasing Cars. So it's all over the place. Let's start off with some open position shapes. The open A major shape can be easier to remember than some other open position chords because all the notes are in the same fret. We have the second fret of the D string, second fret of the G string, and second fret of the B string. And the high E string and A string remain open. I'm using the second, third, and fourth fingers there. But we can play the same chord with the first, second, and third fingers. And some players will even use the first finger, the index finger, to play bar across the second fret. But in that case, they'll most likely not play the high E string. And generally, those fingering choices depend on context and what you might be doing before or after the chord. Next, we're going to play it as a bar chord shape. We're going to take the open E major chord and we're going to move it up to fret 7 and fret 6 and put a first finger bar across the 5th fret. The main challenge here is to get the bar in place strongly and also to make sure that you're right on the fingertips with the remaining fingers so you don't mute any strings that you're trying to play. And with the bar itself, try rolling the finger onto the side, sort of the bonier part of the finger, which will give you a little bit of an easier way to press down on the strings. And when you're practicing that chord, make sure you arpeggiate the chord as well so you can hear for any notes that aren't sounding cleanly. If anything's muted on the B and the E strings, it's probably going to be the first finger bar not pressing down hard enough. And if the remaining strings aren't sounding, it's probably the underside of those fingers just lightly touching the string beneath. So think about all the components of these chords when you practice them and how you might have to refine certain elements. We can also take the open A major chord shape and move it 12 frets higher from fret 2 to 14. That's an octave higher. Then we add an index finger bar at the 12th fret. But in that shape, many players won't play the high E string. It's actually a little bit tight to get everything in place there and to get that high E string ringing clean. So what they'll do is they might use the third finger to play a partial bar across the 14th fret and not even use the bar and not play the high E string. And that shape's really common in things like pop punk, indie, and funk styles. There are many variations on the A chord that you can use. The next thing we're going to look at is an A dominant 7 chord, and you hear this in tracks like Stevie Ray Vaughan's Pride and Joy and many, many funk and soul tracks. So we're going to take the open A major chord using the first, second, and third fingers, and then we're going to use the fourth finger to add the third fret of the high E string. And that's the dominant 7th, the flat 7th, right there at the top of the G. But many players will also use an index finger bar across the 2nd fret and then use the second finger to play that G on the high E string, the 3rd fret. And again, that often depends on context, where you're going to come from or go to next. Another great alternative is to play an A sus2 chord. And to do this, we just take the A major chord and get rid of the third finger, so we have the open B string. And you'll hear that in tracks like Behind Blue Eyes by The Who and Champagne Supernova by Oasis. Another useful alternative is the A major 7 chord, which sounds like this. And that's really common in soul, jazz, ballads, and some pop. And the fingering for that one is the 4th finger on the 7th fret of the D string, the 3rd finger on the 6th fret of the G string, 2nd finger on the 5th fret of the B, and then the 1st finger on the 4th fret of the E string. And we can play the open A string there as well. But that's a really different sound from the A7 that we just looked at, so be careful because they're not interchangeable. And the last shape we're going to look at is Keith Richards' Triad. We're playing a first inversion A major triad all the way up here. And this is really common in many styles, but Keith Richards uses that chord shape a lot. And we're playing the 11th fret on the D string with the 3rd finger. The 1st finger is on the 9th fret of the G string. And the 2nd finger is on the root of the 10th fret of the B string. But you can also play an index finger bar behind the chord at fret 9. And that means you can go from an A major chord to an E major chord like this. Or you can add the open A string against it. So that shape's really useful for standing out of the mix. Say there's a piano, too much low end, you can play up there, and your part is a lot thinner and a lot clearer. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed that video. The A chord is so common. So work on all those shapes and really think about how you can use those major 7, dominant 7 and sus2 shapes to bring some more color to your playing. Don't forget to leave a comment below and subscribe to Guitar World, and I'll see you for the next one. Take care.